Wind whispered across the empty plains like an old song no one remembered the words to anymore. The sun hung low, casting long, tired shadows over a tired piece of land. The ranch had once been something, a place where horses kicked up dust and children ran wild. But now it sagged at the edges like a man who'd taken too many punches and didn't have the will to get back up. Fence posts leaned like drunks. The barn door creaked when the wind breathed too hard. And there, in the middle of it all, stood a man with dust on his boots and a hand resting heavy on the neck of a dying cow. The animal's breaths came slow and ragged, and he knew. Just one more day, maybe two. After that, he wouldn't just be poor, he'd be useless. The cow had been his last hope, his last source of milk, the last living thing on the ranch that didn't look at him with hunger or blame in its eyes. He didn't hear the mule cart at first, just felt the shift in the wind, the subtle pause of the earth as something foreign entered his stillness. When he turned, she was already close. The mule pulled a rickety cart, and on the bench sat a woman, round, red-cheeked, hair hidden beneath a wide bonnet. Not young, not old, just plain. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just looked him dead in the eye, with a stillness that felt older than either of them. Behind her, tied to the cart, walked a healthy cow, shiny-coated, well-fed, strong legs. He swallowed hard. She stepped down without help, her boots landing firm in the dirt. People in town had said she was coming. Some thought it a joke, others a scandal. A woman from nowhere, with no kin, offering herself in marriage, for a place to stay and a man who wouldn't beat her. In return, she'd give him her only cow, the last thing her father left her before death or drink took him, depending on which version she told. No one else wanted her, not in a town that worshipped beauty and waistlines and giggles. She was soft where other women were slim, silent where others flirted. And yet here she stood, offering herself like a transaction. No romance, no ceremony, just a deal made with eyes open. He looked at the cow, then at her. She waited, hands folded. She wasn't desperate. That was the strangest part. She didn't beg, didn't flinch. She simply waited to see if he'd take the offer. Desperation doesn't leave room for pride. He nodded once. They married that evening. The preacher stammered through the vows, unsure if he was officiating or officiating a sin. A few ranch hands from town came to watch, some with whiskey bottles, others just to laugh. A couple women scoffed behind gloved hands. The saloon keeper bet she'd bolt before sundown. She didn't. They stood side by side beneath the fading sky. Vows said in barely their voices. No rings. No kiss. Just silence. The cow stood tied near the fence, chewing grass like none of it mattered. Afterward, she walked inside the house, what was left of it, and closed the door gently behind her. He lingered on the porch. Stars blinked out one by one as clouds moved in. The laughter of the last townsfolk echoed faintly down the hill. When he finally tried the door, he found it locked. He didn't knock. He walked to the barn, stripped off his shirt, and lay down on a bed of hay that poked through the holes in his blanket. The dying cow wheezed nearby, her breath sounding almost like a sigh. He stared at the rafters, wondering what kind of man marries a woman for livestock, wondering what kind of woman trades herself for a place to sleep. But more than anything else, he wondered why he wasn't more ashamed, why a part of him felt, though he didn't have words for it yet, relieved. Relieved he didn't have to pretend. Relieved that she didn't ask him to. The night settled in quiet. Two strangers under one roof, a locked door between them, and a cow tied to a post outside that neither of them could truly call their own yet. But the wind still moved, soft and sure, like it knew the story wasn't over, only just begun. Morning came with a hush, the kind that held back birdsong and wrapped the earth in a soft fog that blurred the edges of everything. The house sat quiet, the roof dripping from night dew. In the kitchen, she chopped onions with slow, practiced hands. The knife made a rhythm, soft thuds against the worn wood. The scent rose up like something clean and sad. Outside, he was already by the fence, a hammer in one hand, nails clutched in the other. The boards had given way again, age and rain and mule pressure from the other side. He bent to the work, without much thought. Fixing fences was a job that didn't ask for cleverness, only persistence. And maybe that's why he liked it. The quietness of it. The way it never tried to talk back. They passed each other in the hallway sometimes. She'd nod or offer a small look, never quite meeting his eyes. He didn't mind. Didn't know what he'd say if she did. At meals, they sat across the table, chewing in near silence. Her food was simple and warm. Beans and bread. Broth with onions. He never complimented her cooking. She never asked if he liked it. And yet, the plates always came clean. She cleaned his shirts too, folded them neatly on the corner of the bed he never slept in. He wanted to say thank you, but the words always stuck. Not because he didn't mean them. Maybe because it all felt too fragile still, like any sound might break it. He started to notice her strength in small ways. The way she carried water buckets balanced without spill. The way she held the axe like someone who knew trees didn't fall from pleating. Her hands, strong but raw at the knuckles. Her back, broad and upright. There was a steadiness in her, like a mule that just kept walking forward, no matter how steep the hill. That afternoon, clouds began to gather in the west, slow and heavy, gray as old nails. The wind picked up. He meant to check the south fence, but got caught up mending the coop instead. By the time he made it out, he saw her. She was already out there, dress hiked up to her knees, sleeves rolled, hammer in hand. A pile of fresh boards beside her. She'd pulled them from the shed. She was driving nails with a steady rhythm, same as chopping onions, same as every task she touched. Blood smudged her knuckles where the wood had splintered. A trickle ran down the side of her wrist. He stood frozen for a moment, watching her work, rain starting to mist in the air. He stepped forward finally, voice uncertain. "Let me." She didn't look up, just said softly, not unkindly, "Used to doing it myself. I can help." She paused then. The hammer hung for a second in the air, then lowered. She moved aside, only just. They worked together, silent. The rain came steadier. The boards slick under their fingers. She handed him nails. He steadied her hammer. Their sleeves brushed sometimes, and neither of them pulled away. He saw how she braced the boards with her shoulder when both hands were full. How she wiped her forehead with the back of her wrist, never once flinching from the sting of sweat in her eyes. He saw the cut deepening, but she kept on. When the last board was nailed in, they stood still for a moment, breath coming heavy. Thunder rumbled far off. They walked back toward the house, side by side, mud clinging to their boots. No words passed between them. Inside, she lit the stove again. He sat at the table, pulling a splinter from his palm. She brought out a small tin of salve and a strip of cloth. Took his hand gently. No hesitation. She cleaned the cut, wrapped it with surprising softness. He watched her face the whole time, searching for something, anger, disappointment, obligation. But it wasn't there. Just quiet focus. Like she'd done this before. Many times. Maybe for people who never said thank you. She finished, tied the knot in the cloth, and turned away. Later that night, he stood at her door again. Not knocking, just listening. A click of the lock came soft from the other side. He nodded once to himself and went to the barn. The cow had calved that morning, a small brown calf with knobby knees and sleepy eyes. He hadn't told her yet. He lay back on the hay, the bandage on his hand warm, her care still lingering like a fingerprint. The door had still locked, but something else had opened. A few days later, while fixing a gate, the old widow from the next property rode by. She squinted down at him, lips tight. "You look tired," she said. "Fence work'll do that." She spat into the dust, then looked toward the house. "She's not locking the door to punish you, you know. Kindness takes time. Some of us are just waiting to see if it's real this time." Then she tipped her hat and rode off without another word. He watched her go, the wind tugging gently at the brim of his hat. Kindness takes time. He looked toward the house. Maybe time had already started. The day started with the distant toll of the church bell. Its chime carried thin on the wind like the call of something old and ceremonial. It was fair day in town. Children ran wild with sticky fingers, chasing each other through dust and laughter. Wagons rattled. Banners flapped half-heartedly in the breeze. The preacher blessed the pies. And everyone pretended, for a moment, that life wasn't hard as dried leather. He hadn't planned on asking her to come along. But that morning, over a quiet breakfast of cornbread and eggs, he found himself watching her hands. They were worn, but graceful in the way they moved, a rhythm, a knowing. She didn't look up when she passed him the coffee. And maybe that's why he spoke. Town. I need a few things. You could ride with me, if you wanted. She hesitated. The fork paused halfway to her mouth. Then she nodded. Not quick. Not eager. But steady. She wore her best dress. The same one she'd worn on the wedding day. Plain blue cotton, high collar. A little faded at the hem. She washed her face twice. Tied her hair back tighter. The mirror in the hallway gave no opinion. It never did. When they arrived, the town saw her before they even stepped down from the wagon. Whispers stirred like smoke. Not cruel, not yet, but curious. The kind that wraps itself in politeness, but stinks of mockery underneath. She walked beside him, not behind. They moved through the street slow. His hand never touched her back, but he stayed close. At the store, she picked out flour, lye soap, a needle pack, and a tin of tea leaves she didn't expect he'd let her keep. That's when the voice came, smooth and sharp like a knife dulled by blood. Well, I'll be. Ain't you a surprise? She froze. The man leaned against a stack of grain sacks, grin wide and eyes narrow. He was clean in the way only liars kept themselves, shirt crisp, boots polished, smile poisoned. Didn't think I'd see you again, sweetheart. What was the price, huh? 1 cow? 2? The rancher didn't move. Not a twitch. The man went on. Your daddy always said you'd cost him more than you were worth. Guess he cut his losses. Sold you off like cattle. Always knew you'd end up somebody's burden. She stared at the floor, fingers tightening around the tin of tea. The rancher stepped forward then. No anger. No theatrics. Just calm. We don't need anything else, he said. Then he placed the sack of flour on the counter, dropped coins beside it, and waited. She didn't speak the whole ride home. The wind kicked up around them, brushing prairie grass sideways. A hawk circled. The road stretched long and silent. He didn't ask what the man meant. Didn't press her for a past that clearly weighed heavy. But when they reached the porch, she didn't go inside right away. She looked at him, eyes clear but trembling at the corners. Do you think I'm worthless? The words were soft, but not weak. Like someone asking if they could finally stop carrying a boulder. He didn't rush his answer. I think you're tired, he said, of being seen wrong. That was all. She nodded once, then stepped inside. He watered the mare, fed the calf, cleaned out the barn, gave her space. When he came to the house later, he didn't expect the door to be open. But it was. Just a crack. The hinges didn't groan like usual. The oil he'd added last week must have held. He didn't push it. Instead, he lowered himself to the wooden floor beside her door, back against the wall, knees drawn up. The lantern in the hallway flickered gold against the grain. He rested his head there and closed his eyes. Not as a man owed a bed. Not as a husband claiming a right. But as a soul keeping quiet watch beside another. He stayed that way until dawn. The tea tin still sat on the kitchen shelf. She hadn't put it away yet. The sky was the color of old steel when the fire showed itself. A faint orange flicker on the horizon at first, far off, like a memory of something burning long ago. But the smoke was real, dark, rising thick, curling above the low hills like a warning too late to heed. He stood at the edge of the field, eyes narrowed, heart still. He didn't need to be told. Some things you feel in your bones before the world names them. The cow was gone. He saw it in the way the gate hung open, rope cut, not unlatched. He followed the prints in the dirt. 3 sets, 2 heavy, 1 light. Wagon wheels 2, deeper on one side, favoring the right. The barn door hung open. A scream split the air, not hers, but the calves, bleeding wild and afraid. He moved fast. Inside, the calf was tied up, panicked, kicking at the slats. Smoke drifted from a small pile of smoldering hay at the back, already dying out. It hadn't caught. Not fully. But someone had tried. A warning maybe. Or a beginning. When he stepped outside again, they were already there. 3 men, the one in the middle wearing that same poison grin. The one from town. From her past. The others stood just behind, loose-limbed and grinning like they thought this might be fun. Evening, the man said, voice smooth as snake oil. Heard you've got something that don't belong to you. The rancher didn't answer. She was sold fair. Her daddy said so. That cow. That was just the sugar on top. Time we collected. Still, he said nothing. One of the others stepped forward, picked up a rock, tossed it lazily between his hands. Barn smells like kindling, friend. Be a shame if it caught fire next time. The rancher took 1 step forward. Not big, not loud, but firm. You'll leave now. The man with the grin shook his head, mock sad. Shame. You seem like a decent fella. But decent don't hold up in law. She was given. We're just taking her back. And that's when she walked out. Barefoot, hair loose from the wind. She didn't run, didn't shout. Just walked straight across the yard, past the porch, past the water trough, until she stood beside the rancher. She didn't say a word. Not yet. The man saw her and lit up like a matchstick. There she is. You ready, sweetheart? Don't make a scene. You always were the dramatic sort. She kept her eyes on the barn. They didn't see the rifle leaning behind the barrel. But she did. And when the rock thrower took 1 step closer, grinning like a dog, showing teeth, she moved. Quick. Smooth. The rifle was in her hands before they could speak. She raised it calm. No shaking. No drama. Just steady arms and a soul that had done the shaking long ago. She aimed high and fired. The shot cracked the sky, sent birds flying from the trees. It missed by miles. But it didn't have to hit. You had your chance to know me, she said, voice like flint. Don't try again. The men froze. All of them. Then the smirks fell, one by one, like coins rolling off a table. The leader blinked, opened his mouth, then thought better. He spat once in the dirt. Ain't worth it. They left. The smoke from the fire was already thinning. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the yard. Neighbors came not long after, drawn by the sound, the smoke, the shot. The old cowboy rode in slow, his mustache twitching like it always did when he was chewing on a thought. She all right? He asked. The rancher nodded. The cowboy looked at her, then back at him. She's not what folks expected, he said, almost like a question. No, the rancher answered. She's more. Later that night, after the calf was calm and the cow returned, untied, waiting patiently near the fence like she never left, he walked up the steps of the porch and opened the front door. The house was quiet, but her door was open, just enough. He stepped inside, not as a man claiming something, not with entitlement, but with the gentleness of someone who'd waited long enough to be invited. She sat on the edge of the bed, not startled, not shy, just present. He didn't speak. He took her hand, calloused and bandaged, and sat beside her in the hush. They didn't need words. Some things are spoken in stillness, in the way 2 shoulders meet, in the warmth of silence shared between those who've learned to live without it for too long. The lamp flickered. Outside, the cow chewed cud. The calf slept. And on the windowsill, where nothing ever grew before, a flower, small and stubborn, had opened in the night. Out here in the dust and wind, folks think love comes like thunder, loud and wild. But the truth is, it comes quiet, like a locked door that opens, because someone finally knocked, instead of kicking it down.